Good morning, everyone. My name is Owen Dashevsky, and today we're going to be looking at why the CCP gained support up to 1945, the Long March, Union Soviet, and the war with Japan. So, the Chinese Communist Party started as a small nearby destroyer movement, managed to gain widespread support by 1945. So, yes, we're going to be looking at all these factors. The Long March, military defeat, and propaganda victory. The Long March was, in reality, a devastating military retreat. By the time the Red Army reached Shenxi in 1936, around 19% of its soldiers had died. But Mao transformed this disaster into propaganda triumph. He portrayed the survivors as historic revolutionaries willing to sacrifice everything for China's future. Stories like Looted Bridge Battle, whether exaggerated or not, became symbols of courage and destiny. Pause briefly here to let the contrast sinks in military defeat turned into a political victory. Mao's leadership and the 8 points for attention. During and after the Long March, Mao strengthened his leadership. He prompted strict rules called the 8 points for attention that required the Red Army to treat peasants respectfully. This mattered because most Chinese were rural peasants and the CCP needed their supports. The Xianxin incident in 1936 forced Chiang Kai-shek into a temporary truce with the communists, giving Mao time to rebuild. By the end of the Long March, Mao had become the undisputed leader of the CCP. Within China's revolutionary movement, there was competing ideas, the two rival visions for China. So within China's revolutionary movement, there was competing ideas. Some intellectuals from the May 4th movement wanted Western-style democracy. Others, like the 28 Bolsheviks, trained in Moscow, wanted a Soviet-style revolution. The non-Soviet from 1936 to 1948. After the Long March, the CCP settled in Yan'an, which became its headquarters. Here the party implemented land reforms, redistributing land from landlords to poor peasants, sometimes something the KMT had promised but never delivered. Foreign visitors like Edgar Snow and the Dixie Mission reported that Yan'an seemed disciplined, organized, and surprisingly popular. These accounts helped build the CCP's international reputation. In 1940, Mao introduced New Democracy, arguing into the CCP should lead China through a transitional stage before socialism. But at the same time, the party launched the Red Certification movement, a harsh campaign from 1941 to 1944. Recruits had to study Mao's writing, confess mistakes, and criticize themselves. Rivals like Wang Ming were humiliated, and the campaign turned violent, with thousands dying or being forced into suicide. The end of recertification and Mao's consolidation. So, in 1944, Mao ended the movement and blamed its accession on local officials. But by doing so, he protected his own image while eliminating all internal opposition. This left him firmly in control and ready to lead the CCP into the next phase of revolution. War with Japan, after 1937, the KMT versus the CCP. Japan invasion in 1937 exposed major weakness in Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government. His New Life movement prompted discipline and obedience, but failed to solve China's social and economic problems. The KMT was increasingly seen as corrupt and inefficient, especially when it failed to stop Japan's rapid advancement. Meanwhile, CCP propaganda portrayed the communists as the true defenders of China, even though their military role was limited. This contrast shifted public sympathy towards the CCP. So a little bit of background on Japan's militarism. So to understand this shift, we need to look briefly into Japan's prior history to get there. So, after being humiliated at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Japan turned in militarism and expansionism. The rejection of its racial equality clause in the League fueled resentment and nationalism. As Japan expanded into China, many Chinese saw the KMT as weak, and the CCP are the only groups offering real resistance. By 1945, the CCP had transformed itself from a defeated movement into a powerful political force. The Long March gave its heroic narrative. Yan'an provided land reforms and an alternative to government model. Recertification secured Mao's absolute control, and Japan's invasion exposed the failure of the KMT, pushing many Chinese towards communism. By the end of World War II, Mao stood as the undisputed leader of a disciplined, organized, and increasingly popular revolutionary party. Alright, so we have just finished chapter 3.3, and I want to thank everyone for listening to me. I am sorry my voice may have sounded weird. I am currently sick at the moment. But again, I would like to thank everyone for listening and have a blessed day. Peace out and enjoy and stay in the future.